My name's Matt Reid. I lead the security business at ITS. I've been with the company for 5 years now, and I have over 20 years of IT security experience. I started in this business back in the 90s as an analyst, and then went into the channel to be a consultant. Had a better part of a decade in the vendor space, and then went to bring it all kind of back together to leverage all that experience back in the channel where I am now with ITS. 2.5 years ago, I think I was at a local security conference here in Detroit, where I reside. I reside north of the city, about an hour, but it was a trade show here in the city where ITS had sponsored, and a vendor there, a manufacturer, was adamant to a group in the booth that DLP was dead. And you know, his claim was that all the users have been trained, the control points have been solved, you know, mission accomplished, right? And it wasn't long after you know, that echo in the community happened with the antivirus, right? AV had been recently declared dead. And although what he said, I wouldn't say it rattled me necessarily, and I never forgot it, because I see almost every day, even now, 2.5 years later, that he was actually dead wrong. So DLP is not dead. It's a critical component of something bigger, and it needs to be more about your workforce than a tool set. DLP is not dead. We just need to stop calling it that and referring to it as that, and rather an essential aspect of an insider threat program. So when we think about kind of transitioning from tools to more program and get more focused on the workforce and on the users, get that connected to the culture, you know, that's a big proposition. I see some friends here that have attended some webinars of the past, and thanks for coming back. But you've heard me make the statement about security awareness takes time. It takes time to build a culture of security. And while we work on that, we can leverage controls to, you know, address critical potential violations, right? The things that we just absolutely must not tolerate, and then use the tools and the controls over time with education to groom, you know, the workforce kind of into shape. So this can't happen overnight, but if a company is focused on educating employees, leveraging the right controls, we've seen, some of you, you know, may participate at this level, where a large company can drive a cultural transformation, and one that stretches across all levels of the organization. So the goal is really to reduce risk while we preserve the culture, so employees clearly understand that the information that they access and leverage as part of their job is the business's, and it is part of their job to help you protect it. So a little bit about ITS. We are headquartered in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in West Michigan, 2 hours east of me. And we are a Fortune 500 focused integrator. We work with some of the Global 2000, some of the Fortune 250, but all verticals across that level. As far as Symantec goes, we are a national platinum partner. So we hold all of their highest technical distinctions, deliver services on behalf of Symantec, as well as about 15 other partners in the security community. And we're intentionally partnered with fewer companies, a couple of big behemoths out there, if you will, very intentionally, in order to be deep subject matter experts on this technology until it's all in the cloud and consumerized and TiVo simple. You know, there's still a need for a company like ITS as a very specialized boutique integrator. If you've been to our website, you've probably seen a lot of this great content. Some of this I have written with my team and other subject matter experts and visionaries in the company have put together around, you know, our specialty areas. If you haven't checked out our website, please do that. I want to make everyone aware we got some really great content out there that you can download. So anyone who has attended my webinars or talks You know this slide. You know I like to talk about it. I'm proud of everything that I've witnessed over my career and that has happened in the world. So I don't mean to preach to the choir with what a lot of people I think also recognize and identify. But as many of you have been there, with this transition and through this evolution as well. But there's so many cumulative variables that have followed these eras. And when I think of insider threat, I think about the users, I think about the workforce, and this is, my career started in the PC era, where us IT guys were worshipped gods, who gifted the workforce with computing resource and assistance and guidance, and IT was in charge. And while I knew that it wasn't, I didn't know at the time that it wasn't going to last that way. I did get my head kind of straight and aligned with what my job was in IT, and that was to provide service. So being a service-minded and oriented person gave way to me being very successful in consulting. But over the last 15 years, the users have taken over. It's kind of shifting back the other way. The company's kind of taken the power back a little bit, I'd say. But now that the data and the workloads are spilling into the cloud, it's a compelling time during this digital transformation to evaluate that balance of, productivity for the organization and supporting millennials and all that stuff we like to make jokes about, but while we keep the company as protected as possible. So the previous user definition has become very complex, right? It kind of started here. Headquarters, regional offices all go through the on-prem security stack to access the internet. Everybody was being called back home, right, to go through out there. And there wasn't as much collaboration happening on the internet as there has become in the last 5 years. So since the internet era, and largely toward the end of that era, our user community has been slowly bypassing the on-prem security stack, obviously some VPN exception there, and going direct to web. So enter into this world of SaaS fashionability, and another egress point has been almost created with one, that was existing in your pipes to the internet. So now we're at a time where the internet has become the de facto extended corporate network. Almost every organization out there is between worlds in how the apps are being served up. Gartner's got some bold predictions on there with adoption, but I think we can face it that the convenience and the value of SaaS is on a steamroll. The genie's out of the bottle, and I don't think it's going to reverse. So this is a huge driver in having a scalable insider threat program, a critical element of success. So let's talk about DLP here and now. Those of you that know me know I love adoption life cycles. And if I had to say, all right, DLP adoption, we're going to think about tools and kind of work our way out of tools throughout the course of this conversation. DLP adoption, spring 2018, this is where I think we are. Laggers, they're definitely can feel the GDPR breathing down their necks. We're seeing healthcare and higher education, holdouts, if you will, seeing them mobilized in the last 6 months. The previous adopters, folks that were part of the early majority, most of the early adopters have got this nailed down pretty well. They're very mature in their DLP programs or insider threat programs. Early majority, late majority, they're still doing the work. And to be fair, those that previously invested in DLP that has shown us all the do's and don'ts that we get to leverage now, there's been a lot to do, whether it's been the enterprise coverage, changing and evolving priorities, acquisitions, whether it's data in motion, data at rest, data in endpoint, now data in cloud. We see all types in this journey. Some that own everything they need, yet only 30% of it is leveraged. Others, we see some really mature companies that have blazed some trails in what good DLP or insider threat programs look like. So there are companies that are buying it now, and then they're doing the diligence to get off to a good start with the right amount of attention, and even potentially outside assistance. So some of the lessons learned and things that we've seen, we've been focused a lot on network and hosts. And that needs to evolve. The game has been modified with cloud adoption, as I've said, and we have this terrific opportunity to leverage the scale and great times for back-end provider level integration. And when we think about like some of the data science stuff like that applies to CASB tools, some of the analytics that can be dropped over existing DLP infrastructures in the enterprise, there's some really good integration opportunity. Microsoft Power BI is presenting some really good opportunity for context and additional visibility into things like this. So with SOAP and REST APIs, I mean, it's a glorious time for integration. Many DLP customers or pursuers of the past were checking the box, right? I hate to say checking the box, but the reality is compliance. And a good friend, a retail CISO down in Central Ohio, likes to say, compliance is a low bar, right? Compliance is a low rung on the ladder. Rather, we need to get back to good old risk management. So we see a lot of companies that were, maybe complacent with multiple DLP tools to cover the various control points. And I think it's probably due to the technical acquisition being driven by the different businesses within a given company. And it's kind of ironic because these smaller companies, you think they'd be the ones that want the platforms, but not be driven by IT or security, and rather the business has made a technology decision. I just think it's interesting that the larger companies that have more staff, have the bigger budgets, usually have the bigger, not bigger, but have more maturity, made the decision to simplify management with a platform and doing everything across multiple control points with one tool. Not one tool for endpoint, another for network and email and so on. So just a reference here, the risk reduction over time proposition that Symantec and other vendors follow. This is the journey. Once you install it, you have eyes and ears, and then your pace to move down through, excuse me, this model is determined by, the investment you put at it, the goals, how quickly you want to get down, where do you want to get to in this model, and then how quickly do you want to do it. So just a reference in there. Very diverse blend of executives, engineering, and business folks here that are identified as kind of a cross-functional team of different people that are involved. When we think about the DLP team, we're really talking about the product gurus, the steering committee, the incident response team, but all these other groups need to be brought together to solve DLP for the organization. So again, we're kind of changing the difference between, hey, we've had an audit, we know we're hemorrhaging email or PII or business information out of Office 365, let's buy a CASB tool and to solve this. You got to bring these people together. You need a mission-ready team. And the first few people or groups here are all usually very willing. But when we get to the data owners, this is where influence can diminish. And this is also at odds with really getting somewhere in your insider threat program. Often the critical link between the tools and the programs is down there at those data owner levels. So you got to get that right if you have lofty goals in the way of insider threat. And again, this isn't easy. I'm kind of demystifying it, hopefully, but heavy dependence on culture here. It's far from, this proposition is not simple. It's far from impossible. And that we find that the most productive IT teams out there that are leveraging, this digital transformation to preserve or establish the right culture for the workforce, at the same time, keep reducing risk for the organization. That's the balance. That's the conundrum here. So when we're looking at insider threat, we should be thinking through some important decisions. But culture, it's right there at the top, and that's where the top-down support really gels together between the technology and the people. So I wanted to put this in here because this is something that we've really been soul searching as a services organization and a services company here at ITS. We're frequently approached to scope managed services for DLP. And while we've done it for some large company, even some financial organizations, for me as a security guy, I really struggle with this one and what I would do if it were my company. Personally, I think insider threat is too important to outsource. Again, that deep cultural connection almost demands that you build and operate this internally or have significant stake in it. Even if you leverage, some missing components or elements of your team, you got to operate this and have this sponsored inside. It's just my opinion. The workforce becomes aware of your information assets. That's extremely powerful, right? I mean, do that, have that managed or ran outside, or do that inside. I really feel like you got to do that inside. And if it were my company, personally, given the times, given the cumulative workload of all those eras I showed, given the big job that is IT and that is security, I would be looking to outsource important, but frankly, boring aspects of the previous IT eras, right? So the things that are timely now and the things that are deeply rooted into the organization and that are revolve around a primary asset in the organization, the information, I'd be managing that in-house, even if I've got some outside help to get it going. And then there's the operational training, right? The ongoing training, education of the workforce. This should be ideally tied to your security awareness and your GRC and all your employee attestations should all be ran inside. So here's what the good companies are doing. Here's what productive companies are doing. Can't overstate the top-down approach. If we don't have C-level person with proximity to your insider threat program, you are likely painted in a bit of a corner on the tool side. So you're kind of stuck in DLP land and not really, embracing your opportunity to evolve or transform into being more insider threat. So if you establish those cross-functional teams of engineering people, business units, data owners, steering committee, you've got that mission-ready team. You've got all that figured out, then you can check that off, right? If you leverage IT and security to get things started, it's likely that they're still involved to some extent, especially security in the way of those responders or product gurus. But hopefully you connected these controls to your business. You tracked, agreed to risk reduction metrics, and you reported those to or are reporting them to the steering committee, who will overall manage the company-wide risk as it is part of their job, and to those individual business units, who they're going to continue to work with those teams to be better stewards in handling the company's primary, assets, right? So we should be automating that reporting for each stakeholder group, and then comparing that, periodically, the reassessment to those agreed to metrics. And those could be risk-based, they could be business unit-based, they could be, critical part of your employee outreach and communication, all that good stuff. So this is a significant complement to, what we're often talking about with DLP, and that is false positives, if detection accuracy, and we've got to go beyond that to notify the workforce when those violations occur, and it can be done without, alienating anyone, right? Because we care about the user experience. IT wants to be liked. So the more productive companies that we worked with, in fact, have been able to scale the technology by collapsing the different tools for different control points into one view, something that addresses the ongoing needs of the enterprise, while embrace this opportunity, migration to the cloud, and we kind of have a chance to get it right faster and in less time than what we attempted to solve within the four walls. So the risk reduction over time proposition to protect SaaS, for example, there are phases to it, but there are fewer, and you can move through this faster than what we saw with DLP in the four walls, which is great. In addition, make sure that your DLP platform is, if it is outsourced, consider bringing it back where I feel it belongs. So some things you might be missing. And this is a screenshot from a CASB or a SaaS protection maturity model that's out on our website. It's part of a white paper that you could go and download. One of the last phases of the third level of maturity in protecting SaaS is to leverage user behavior analytics. So when we think about technology, the migration of thinking about the tools to more of the people, more of the workforce, this transition toward identity, becomes really important, just a high-level concept. But behavior, it's the future, and that this is going to address incidents that deviate from the static policy. And depending on your business and your commitment to insider threat, it might be time to reassess your requirements and your needs. Again, cloud migration being a huge compelling event. So, the DLP group or team, we work with a lot of companies, or we get introduced to a lot of companies who are struggling to get down that risk reduction over time model. And we find that, we've got one DLP guy that's trying to do everything, or we find that, we have one or two resources that have a piece of the DLP team addressed, but they're still missing critical pieces to this. So, you know who you are out there. If you need help, get the help. Have somebody talk through where your pain is, and figure out where where you can get the most bang for your buck that complements your job and your work-life balance today, but maybe brings essential skills and experience that you may not have in-house. So you can get the right blend of that fits the organization and kind of have it both ways without having to necessarily just consider outsourcing something that really has too much proximity to the business, in my opinion. So a challenge with securing any asset is context. And I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Bay Dynamics, who have been very successful for over a decade developing reporting and analytic gaps that vendors have historically struggled with. So they bring an analytic-based approach that overlays DLP tool sets and a bunch of other cool Symantec technology. They've given Symantec a great solution with an OEM relationship here to the ongoing problem that vendors have just struggled with. I'm just sorry, they've struggled with the reporting, they've struggled with the analytics. The game has evolved and has changed as we've talked about today. So they have kind of been, aiming at the target a little bit ahead of some others in the industry, and they've come out with a great product that it overlays this technology that's gotten a lot of recognition and awards over the years. So I encourage you to check this out. It's called Risk Fabric, or Information-Centric Analytics in the case of the OEM with Symantec. And it's basically, kind of extending analytics beyond, the native DLP controls to focusing more on the user. Again, this is about the user, and they've got the ability to help organizations with some investigation workflows and some cool things that are built into the product that, again, address a vital gap out there. So take a look at that. They've had a lot of success with this, and actually we are starting to deploy this with our existing DLP customer base here at ITS. Okay, so insider threat program enablement. This is something that we do at ITS, and I don't normally pitch ITS services in my webinars, but I do have to tell you about this one because this is something that we are seeing a lot of success with and is really resonating with a lot of companies that are either dusting off the DLP program, moving from the checkbox, or maybe, again, the folks that are adopting now that are saying, okay, we're late to the game, we've got to make up for lost time. We need a pop-up DLP team to get us running and get us going, and then turn this over to our capable hands eventually. So many organizations that we work with are struggling to find skilled people that can drive DLP program improvement. And this is an area where we can help, and we can really do a great job. We have a lot of a very high CSAT across our delivery organization. Definitely applies to DLP. We evaluate our consultants with our customers every week, and they rate the quality of our service and the smarts of our people. So it's somewhat implied that we've got project-based services to complement DLP. Again, there's a lot of friends I see on the webinar that are here that know we do this, but this is a little bit of a different approach that we're having, again, a lot of success with. So this is an option for an organization who know that they're missing essential members of the DLP team and who are wondering if they just need a managed service because they know they're out there, or they've heard of other companies leveraging it. They may be daunted by all the requirements and all the goals, lofty goals, and possible metrics for a DLP program. So they're, looking at outsourcing as an option or looking at the costs. But again, our goal is to help you define the program, bring, the silos, the different, groups and different people that may not communicate or collaborate well on what this can mean to the company, what it can mean to the business. But we can bring those people together and help you define a program and a roadmap with metrics to measure, and help you establish the architecture and design, your policies, your incident workflows, the DLP team, whether it's something that we're helping with initially and then transferring it over into your hands. Different resources that are going to be involved in this. It's a cross-functional team from the ITS side, whether it's executive sponsors and folks such as myself, to technical architects that are going to help you build, the template and the roadmap, and then be there to, kind of support the overall initiative. And then we've got this guided onboarding where, yes, we implement the platform and we integrate control points and, evolve you through some accuracy along the lines of detection and automate as much of the response as we can. That's done with that architect as well as with a consultant or consultants. And then we have a platform maintenance piece where, we have organizations that say, look, we can handle the response. We need help with maturity. We need help with the program, and we need help with engineering. I don't want to have DLP guys. I have security guys that are connected to the business, and they can handle that tier 1, tier 2 response and the forensics. We need the engineering help. So we can come up with a modular approach that is very intentional and very prescriptive that can help you accomplish this. And, platform maintenance, there's no problem there. But even going further, and this is kind of where we get into what not a lot of other companies that are doing, in my opinion, that are giving you operational training. We're going to help train your incident handlers. Not only are we going to set up detection and automatic response to where you're going to be going through fewer incidents, but we can help classify those by criticality and allow your incident handlers to move through what is in the console and is in what's in there, and be more effective and make the job doable, right? Employee communications. I mean, again, this is where our technical architect and our executive sponsors, we can have a hand in your employee communication. We can help with that messaging. We can help with that training, and bring this to an overall kind of like a white glove service, if you will. So, thank you so much. I have got 33 minutes in here. I'm at a perfect sweet spot here to give you guys a couple of minutes back. Hopefully this was valuable. Hopefully you identify with some of this. I'm going to go ahead and pop up the chat dialogue and see if we have any questions. We do have one here. You see, so risk-centric goals versus business unit goals. Can you clarify? Yes. Okay, so we're probably looking back, back to the risk reduction over time proposition. An overall risk reduction goal metric could just be a percentage. Usually it's a percentage of decline in incidents. It could be by policy. It could be by process. It could be by broken business process. It could be by employee oversight. Whereas a business unit focus goal could be more top business unit, number of incidents per policy. It could be top violators, right? So this would be more of a departmental or group or team risk reduction goal. So like here's a good one: unreviewed incident queue. When we perform red flag assessments, we offer non-fee-based red flag assessments for DLP customers. And basically they want to be evaluated against, a simple scorecard of adherence to best practice, industry and semantic best practice. So we offer these red flag assessments. And one of the first things that'll tell us if an organization doesn't have mature risk reduction metrics is when we see a bloated incident queue. So when they log into the console through our webinar or through our web meeting, our secure web meeting, we see a bloated incident queue, and we automatically can look at each other and say, oh, okay, well, we know where one aspect of the process is. They don't have mature risk reduction metrics. But there are also their operational metrics that show how well this DLP system is working, and that's something else that we see usually pretty fast into this is where can we improve performance of the DLP system itself, right? So many companies are motivated via GDPR to go find PII as far as where data lives at rest, where it is, unstructured data in your different storage repositories. And there's often storage performance considerations that can be improved there. So we find that, that's a level of an operational metric. But yeah, good question. Risk-centric goals versus business unit goals. That was a long, a long explanation. So hopefully that was what you were looking for. Well, I really appreciate everyone joining today. Thanks so much. And I hope to see you on another ITS webinar in the future. Have a great day.